This guy's job was to bring underage girls and girls and have sex with employees and other artists.
Yeah, tell them stop bringing all the minors over here late at night. I live right next to him. He do too much. It be like buses, like big ass buses. You just see all type of shit hop out. Especially at nighttime, like around 3 o'clock in the morning. It gets wild. I'm his neighbor. When my basketball go over there, I just let it be because I don't want to knock on the door.
So I need to give you a massive flashing red warning here. What I'm about to say is quite disturbing. She says she believed that Diddy had something to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur and said as much. Allegedly, Diddy warned her that she would pay for saying something like that. So let's just fast forward now to a month later, where she says this guy Shane invited her to come to his apartment. And the lawsuit says, quote, plaintiff and defendant Shane then began to watch a movie, and defendant Shane offered her a glass of water, which he retrieved and brought back to the plaintiff. A few minutes later, Ashley Parham says that P. Diddy showed up with an entourage, including his top aide, Christina Coram, an unnamed woman who is not a defendant in the suit, and 3 unnamed men, one of whom she says was Diddy's driver, and Parham says that that driver waited outside throughout the whole of what I'm about to tell you. Parham says that Diddy was antagonistic from the start and that he put a knife to her face. And now this is where I start reading directly from the complaint. Defendant Shane then partially undressed plaintiff, and then defendant Diddy removed the remainder of plaintiff's clothing, removing the knife from her face, and then retrieved a bottle of liquid from a large fanny pack. Defendant Diddy then squirted a bottle of liquid on plaintiff, which placed her in fear that she was being squirted with a chemical substance like acid. Plaintiff soon realized the substance was an oil/lubricant. Plaintiff was squirted with this liquid substance all over the entirety of her naked body. Defendant KK was then told by defendant Diddy to insert what looked like a syringe from sterile packaging into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant KK did as told, and then told defendant Diddy that she was unable to use the IUD because it had prematurely been released from its packaging, and an IUD is a birth control device. Defendant Diddy, upset by this, took the so-called syringe from defendant KK and tried inserting it into plaintiff's vagina instead. Defendant KK and Diddy began to argue as defendant KK continued to advise defendant Diddy that since the IUD had been prematurely released from its packaging, there was no way they could insert it into plaintiff's vagina effectively. After some time, defendant Diddy heeded the advice of defendant KK and removed the syringe from plaintiff's vagina and handed it to defendant KK. Defendants KK and Jane Doe then exited defendant Shane's residence, leaving the plaintiff alone with defendants Diddy, Shane, and Doe's number 1 and 2. Defendant Diddy then picked up a television remote that was near to plaintiff and violently inserted it into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant Diddy, while violently raping plaintiff with a television remote, told plaintiff that her life was in his hands and that if he wanted, he could, quote, take her, and she would never be seen again. Plaintiff began hysterically crying from the threats by Diddy, along with the pain of being violently, vaginally raped by defendant Diddy with the television remote, as well as the lingering pain from the ordeal with the IUD syringe insertion. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to turn plaintiff on her stomach, seemingly tired of hearing plaintiff's blood-curdling cries. Defendant Shane then grabbed plaintiff by her abdomen and hips and turned plaintiff on her stomach. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to put a pillow over her head because he didn't want to see her face or hear her cries, and instructed defendant Shane to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Shane did as he was told by defendant Diddy and began to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Diddy then violently raped plaintiff anally after defendant Shane. Defendant Doe number 2 then joined defendants Diddy and Shane, taking a turn anally raping plaintiff. Immediately after defendant number 2 raped plaintiff, he exited defendant Shane's residence. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Doe number 1 to also rape plaintiff. Instead of immediately raping plaintiff, defendant Doe number 1 doused plaintiff with more oil/lubricant and then jumped on top of plaintiff's naked and oiled body, treating it like a slip and slide and knocking the wind out of plaintiff due to his enormous size. Defendant Doe number 1 then caught himself from sliding over plaintiff's oiled body and off the bed and then began raping plaintiff vaginally. While defendant number 1 was raping plaintiff, defendant Diddy sat in a chair near the bed and began masturbating while recording plaintiff's rape by defendant Doe number 1. Another party's phone fell on the bed near plaintiff. Plaintiff then attempted to grab the phone, but it slipped out of her hands and onto the floor due to the oil/lubricant that had been doused all over her person by defendants Diddy and Doe number 1. Defendant Diddy began laughing at plaintiff's attempt to grab the phone. Throughout this violent gangbang-style rape, defendant Diddy made constant belittling remarks to plaintiff, including that he, quote, owned her now. Plaintiff's body was becoming more and more limp over the course of the violent rape until eventually she had no control over her body, nor could she move her body. When defendant Doe number 1 finished raping plaintiff, defendant KK entered the room to examine the condition of plaintiff, who was barely able to move or control her bodily functions. Defendant KK examined plaintiff to see if she needed assistance and was about to give plaintiff an IV fluid. Plaintiff cannot be certain if she did or did not receive such intravenous intervention. Defendant KK then opened a different bag, different than the one that Diddy removed the oil from, where plaintiffs observed several medicine bottles, IV fluid bags, and other unidentifiable powder-like drugs. Defendant KK then removed a pill from one of the medicine bottles and gave it to defendant Diddy. Defendant Diddy then inserted the pill into plaintiff's mouth and down her throat, to where plaintiff had no choice but to ingest the unknown pill. Defendants Diddy, Shane, KK, and Doe number 1 then exited the residence to the backyard where they smoked marijuana and cigarettes. Plaintiff remained in an almost lifeless state in defendant Shane's bedroom until she finally regained her bodily functions. Plaintiff then began looking for her clothes and her purse that contained her car keys and cell phone, but could not discover them in the room or anywhere in the apartment. Plaintiff was only able to find a t-shirt on the floor, which she put on to cover her naked body. Plaintiff also observed a black condom wrapper on the floor of the bedroom, which she assumed was used by one of the defendants, most likely defendant Diddy, during the rape. Plaintiff then grabbed a knife from the kitchen and headed to the backyard where defendants were smoking, as that was the only way to exit the premises onto the street.
Okay, but you had a guy named Tubby, used to work for Interscope. This guy's job was to bring underage girls and have sex with employees and other artists, to the point where his friend got caught up with the same thing. How they raided Puppy House for sex trafficking, they raided his friend house for sex trafficking.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
He never was an artist.
Sure. Can you say something? Can you say something
you really
positive?
Look at the whole situation.
Because you only got.
Everything I'm saying is positive. And I got to have a call right back.
All right, Suge, you call back. Do you think? Do you think that Diddy?
He can do so.
Do you think Diddy knows enough that it's a very delicate balance that maybe investigators will want to know these other names and greatly reduce his exposure to criminality, to time, versus what people would do to keep him quiet?
Number one, I've been knowing him a long time, and we was friends. We're not enemies, but we were friends. He's not a dummy, so he's smart enough to work his magic. On top of that, this man right here, he been involved with the FBI and of his career. He got powerful people. One of his partners who started his company with drug money, President Obama, got him out of prison. So it's not like he don't have no moves. So I don't think nobody should just count him out. I don't think he gonna lay down and just crawl in the corner and die. He probably going through a lot of shit right now because he probably going through a lot of withdrawals for the drugs. But the industry got him on drugs. My artist, one of the worst mistakes I could have made was protecting my artist is doing a deal at Interscope. When my artists used to pull up in Valet, the Murdoch building, they'd get out, they'd smell like weed. When they clothes smell like weed. When they made it to any office, it would smell like weed. Those guys, for my artists, they introduced cocaine to my artists. So once they got on cocaine, once they got on drugs, once they got on alcohol, and that's when the weird stuff happened. And I think that's what took Puffy down that lane. Then you got to remember, Clyde Davis, Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell.
Simon, come on.
You better believe it. Alcohol, drugs. He compromised his manhood. Because he was taught that. He got Usher as a kid. They never recorded no songs, but alcohol, drugs,
Simon.
sex. Justin Bieber. And see, they do these things to take control. They're not doing, there's nothing wrong with being gay. If you choose to be gay, that's your preference. But they're doing this to people for control. It's a power situation.
Force, fraud, coercion was mentioned in the case. Actual sex trafficking was mentioned. It was not in Ghislaine Maxwell's case and in Jeffrey Epstein's case, which means this guy should never see light of day. It should be life because children are involved. Everything should be off the table. The jury should be pretty well informed. The jury should know what's going on if the prosecution did a good job in selecting a jury. And then what? We need the people that funded him. Where's the music moguls that funded the freak offs? Because he didn't start with cash. He didn't start Bad Boy Records on his own. He had big names that are still in the music business today, that are walking around scot-free, who funded him. Remember, my sister Ilanka was trafficked in the music business. Within 31 years of fighting human trafficking, if there's one thing we really know, it's the hybrid blend of entertainment and trafficking. This is literally my family's story. There's so many that should fall with him. The concern I have is that he will fall alone. He cannot fall alone.
I got an island, it's called Love Island.
For the report about the 9-year-old boy, that the video that was being shopped around was Bieber and Diddy. It's on the tapes. I believe Barack Obama got a tape.
Probably the Obama thing.
John, what's it? Oh God! Oh God! John, what is your wife talking about? I don't know.
Jennifer Lopez has multiple tapes.
People realized when they zoomed in a little bit, there was a person, seemed to be like a kid.
Beyonce got a tape. Stevie J and Eve stuff. I know Drake got a tape. I know Rihanna got a tape. I know Chris Brown's on one of them tapes. I know Trey Songz. Definitely Usher. I think what would shock people are the politicians and the royals. When Harry and Meghan are going to be honest about their freak-off tape.
I don't think it's only celebrities going to be shook. He had politicians in there. He had princes in there. He also had a couple of preachers in there.
You personally, you think they got tapes?
Well, my personal opinion that if Lil Rob could be trusted and his statements are true, they got him. They got tapes and stuff.
Now, if Diddy had tapes, the feds have them. That's a lot of blackmail.